الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليماً كثيراً كثيراً أما بعد. We are now on the 99th surah of the Quran, and this is Surah Zilzal. Zilzal. It's another Makki surah, and this surah, as the name denotes, speaks first about the quaking and the shaking of the earth on the Day of Judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. Zalzala means to shake, and this is one of those verbs in the Arabic language which has a 4-letter root. Most of the verbs in the Arabic language have a 3-letter root, like nasara, and then from that all the verb forms and noun forms are derived. Then there's a category of verbs that have 4 letters at their root. So zalzala is an example of that. Now, within these verbs that have 4-letter roots, whenever letters are repeated, then this gives a specific meaning. As the ulama of Lugha have mentioned, when letters are repeated in these 4-letter verbs, it gives the meaning of the repetition of that act, the repetition of that occurrence, because a verb is telling you of an occurrence or an act. So look at zalzala, you have zalam and then zalam again. And there are several verbs like this. Some are used in the Quran. Damdama, dal mim, again dal mim. Kubkibu fiha, kabkaba, kaf ba again. Similarly, za'za'a. And there are many words like this. So this gives the meaning of the occurrence happening continually and repetitively. It's happening over and over and over again. So look at an earthquake. An earthquake is not one jolt of the earth. It's a series of quakes and tremors, and it continues for some time. Every one of those tremors it's a quake by itself, but there are many quakes. So, إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. When the earth will be shaken. زِلْزَالَهَا. This zilzal is the infinitive form, what we call the masdar, of the same verb, zilzal and zalzalah. So it is whenever the masdar or the infinitive form of a verb is brought after the verb, then it is used to intensify the meaning in some way or another, or clarify the meaning in some way or another. So zilzalaha, it's quaking. So this is not an ordinary quake. This is not an ordinary shaking. This is not an ordinary earthquake. And this, of course, is referring to the earthquakes that will occur on the Day of Judgment. And the Quran, in numerous places, describes what will happen to the earth. So, because this quaking of the earth will be more violent and more devastating than anything that could be measured on any scale, as today's scales are used to measure the intensity of an earthquake, this is something that no scale could possibly estimate or measure. Zilzalaha. It is its own quaking. It's as if it has a mind of its own, and it is not answering to any physical law. It is completely out of the ordinary. And when we see what will happen to the surface of the earth and what will happen to what's in the earth, such as the mountains, then you really realize that something that can uproot the mountains from the depths of the earth and toss them into the air, it would be something very, very violent. So إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا, when the earth will be shaken, its own shaking, its distinct, its unique shaking. And وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا, and the earth will then expel, it will remove, it will take out its burdens. Athqal, plural of thiql, it will take out all its burdens. What are the burdens inside? So, some Mufassirin have said this refers to all the treasures that are inside the earth. It will throw them out. But the more accurate tafsir of this is that in this context it's referring to the dead bodies, especially those that were a burden on the earth while they were walking on the earth, and they were a burden on the earth when they were buried inside the earth did not want them. So it's going to toss them out. Really, a person, when they're walking and spending their life in the world, should reflect upon themselves that, am I amongst those that the earth is happy to accommodate and allow to walk on, or am I from those that are a burden on the face of this earth? It's an inner reflection, it's a personal reflection, but it really allows one a good opportunity of introspection, that what am I really about? And once this body is entrusted to the ground, will the earth be happy with me being there, or will it abhor me and detest me for being there, and then all kinds of punishments afflicted on me? May Allah save us. So the earth will expel its burdens, throw them out. وَقَالَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا, and those that are witness on that day will say, what has happened to it? مَا لَهَا, what has happened to it? We knew this to be a very different kind of earth. We knew the earth to be something completely different. It was soft. جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا, it was soft, it was pliable, it was workable. We could walk on this earth. We could construct on this earth. This earth was so stable and so strong. But this has become something else. يَوْمَئِذٍ تُحَدِّثُ أَخْبَارَهَا, on that day, the earth will speak of its news, its talk. What does it have to say? The earth will convey its version of what it has to say. Up till now the earth has been silent, but on that day the earth will speak, and this will mean one of two things. Some Mufassirin have said that the violent shaking that will take place and the devastation that will be caused by this uncontrollable movement of the earth, this will be the earth speaking of all of the wrong that has been committed on it. So through this shaking, the earth is speaking that this is what was done, and this is how I was treated. Even though I was housing and accommodating people, I was growing fruits and vegetation, I was allowing them to build and construct, I was allowing them to travel and traverse across me, and this is how they treated me. Now see my response to all of this. And the other tafsir of this is that تُحَدِّثُ أَخْبَارَهَا, it will give its news. The earth will testify to all of the acts that were committed on it. Like it's mentioned in some narrations, that the earth will, a place where the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is done. That place, that spot of the earth will testify for that person, in favor of that person. Just like when a person calls the adhan, the hadith mentions that wherever the sound of this adhan reaches, every living and non-living thing, the grass, the trees, the rocks, everything that the voice reaches to shall testify for this mu'adhan on the Day of Judgment. So similarly, if somebody did good deeds, the earth will be amongst those who bear testimony for it, for that person. And if a person committed a sin, sometimes a person commits errors and sins thinking that nobody is watching, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always watching and the angels are always documenting everything. But on the Day of Judgment, witnesses will be brought, and the earth will be one of those witnesses. How will it convey its news and why? بِأَنَّ رَبَّكَ أَوْحَى لَهَا. Because its Lord, its Master, has given it the permission. أَوْحَى لَهَا. Or has given it the command. أَوْحَى, to give the revelation or to convey a command. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give it the instructions that speak. يَوْمَئِذٍ يَصْدُرُ النَّاسُ أَشْتَاتًا لِيُرَوْا أَعْمَالَهُم. On that day, people will return. Sadara yasduru means to return, to come back. The process that is before this is called wurud. Wurud and wird, which means to come, to collect, to congregate. And the opposite of that is sudur. After the congregation, people will disperse. So now people will disperse, يَوْمَ إِذٍ يَصْدُرُ النَّاسُ, from where? After having given their accounts. After having had their deeds weighed and their accounts checked. People will be going back. Ashtatan. Ashtat is plural of shatit, which means, it means in varying groups, in varying categories. Ashtatan. يوم نحشر المتقين إلى الرحمن وفدا ونسوق المجرمين إلى جهنم وردا. So, the pious people and the impious people. People who did certain kinds of good deeds will be grouped together based on those good deeds. And those who committed certain kinds of misdeeds will be grouped along with those who also engaged in those misdeeds. And those who did a variety of misdeeds will be grouped with every one of them. They will be called with every one of them. Every time one of those groups is called and summoned, this person will have to go and stand with them. Then they'll have to go and stand with the next group. Then they'll have to go and stand with the next group, so that it is shown that this person belonged to all of these categories. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ. Whoever has done the weight of one speck of mithqal, weight, dharra, a speck. Whoever has done a speck's worth of good shall see it in the form of the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they are raised. In fact, even in the qabr they will see the results of their good deeds. And then on the Day of Judgment, and then as they are being taken to their final destination, Jannah, and then once they approach Jannah, and then after they enter Jannah, any speck of good that they have done, they will see its results. And anyone who has done a speck of wrong shall see it. They shall see its outcomes. So all the deeds that have been documented will manifest themselves in the form of either punishments or rewards. And this verse, some Mufassirin have said that this is the most frightening verse because of what it implies, that nothing will be omitted. Just like when the book of deeds will be presented, so the person will be told to read it yourself, and decide, take your own account. So some will say, مَا لِهَذَا الْكِتَابِ لَا يُغَادِرُ صَغِيرَةً وَلَا كَبِيرَةً إِلَّا أَحْصَاهَا. What kind of book is this? It has not left even the minutest thing out. The most major thing or the most minor thing, every single thing has been included and accounted for here. So this is a warning to, on one side, not consider any good deed insignificant. No good deed should be considered insignificant. Like the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا ولو أن تلقى أخاك بوجه طلق. Don't consider any good deed to be inferior, even if it is meeting someone with a smiling face. Meeting your brother with a smiling face. Don't consider this to be insignificant. Don't write it off as unimportant, as unnecessary. It's a good deed, it's written as a sadaqah. In the other hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, that مَا مِنْكُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا وَيُكَلِّمُهُ رَبُّهُ لَيْسَ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَهُ تَرْجُمَانٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will speak to everyone directly without an interpreter. فَيَنْظُرُ إِلَىٰ أَيْمَنَ مِنْهُ فَلَا يَرَى إِلَّا مَا قَدَّمَ. When this person is put in this place where they have to face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will look to the right to see if they can escape, but to the right will be piles of their own deeds. وَيَنْظُرُ إِلَىٰ أَشْأَمَ مِنْهُ فَلَا يَرَى إِلَّا مَا قَدَّمَ. They'll look to the left, can I escape to the left? But there also are heaps and heaps of their own deeds. وَيَنْظُرُ تِلْقَاءَ وَجْهِ. They will look in front, maybe I can escape from here. فَلَا يَرَى إِلَّا النَّارِ. A wall of fire will be there to stop them. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, فَاتَّقُوا النَّارِ. Save yourself from that fire. فَاتَّقُوا النَّارِ وَلَوْ بِشِقِّ تَمْرَةٍ. Even if it is with a piece of a date. If today there is an opportunity to give charity, if you have a date, give a date. If you don't have a full date, you have a piece of a date, give that. Don't consider that to be insignificant. And what if you don't even have a piece of a date? فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ فَبِكَلِمَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ. If you don't even have a piece of a date to give, then respond with good words. The one who is coming to you with their need, respond to them with kind words, with gentle words, with words that will console them. That will take the place of your sadaqah if you have nothing to give. So no good deed should be considered insignificant. It will show on the Day of Judgment. Similarly, if someone does something for us, we should not consider it to be insignificant. In one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says that one neighbor, referring to women who frequently, women who are neighbors, they'll exchange food, somebody will cook something and give it to their neighbor. Says one neighbor should not consider an offering from her neighbor to be insignificant, even if it's the hoof of an animal which has been overcooked. And she's giving that, don't consider it to be insignificant. Because you don't know of the ikhlas that they're giving it with, the effort and the sacrifice that they put into it. And you don't know that that little act of kindness could be a means of salvation for them. But your rejecting it and considering it insignificant could be a means of punishment for you. So every minute act, good or bad, will become manifest and become clear on the Day of Judgment. Everyone will see it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to see the good of our deeds, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pardon and forgive our deeds and cleanse us from our sins before we have to stand in front of Him on the Day of Judgment. We move on to the next surah, Surah Al-Adiyat. Here, the theme is a little bit different. And we've mentioned this several times, that you can see the descriptions in the Makki surahs are very powerful imagery is used. You can, just by understanding what the verse is saying, you can visualize that scene. It's being painted very clearly. Here, it's another scenario that is being presented in the opening verses. وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا. Adiyat, ada ya'du means to run. And this is why an enemy is called adu, because either they're always running after you or you're always running away from them. It's the one you run away from. So adwan, one meaning of adu, or the original meaning of adu, is to run, to race. So wal adiyat is the plural of adiyah. Those that are racing, dabhan. Dabhan, the original meaning of dabh is that when a piece of wood is burned, how the flames go leaping. Some are short, some are long, and how the flames just jump out. That's the original meaning of dabh. So this is referring to the panting of the animals that are running, sprinting. In this case, adiyat is referring to horses. Those horses that are running, panting and heaving. So it's an uncontrolled, when a horse or any animal, or even a human being is running, the breathing is not measured. The breathing is, it's high, it's low, it's fast, it's slow. Sometimes deep breaths, sometimes shallow breaths. So they're panting and heaving. So Allah swears by those horses. And these are the horses that are going out, the war horses. that are taking their rider, their knight, into battle. And this running, this sprinting of these horses while they're panting is showing that these horses are there to fulfill their master's command. Even though they're breathing heavily, they're not relenting, they're not slowing down. فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدْحًا. The intensity of the gallop is such that when the hooves strike the ground, now you know that the hooves of horses have horseshoes. So when the metal of these horseshoes strikes rocks, then sparks fly. A horse galloping on a cobblestone road, you'll see sparks. So similarly, horses running over this rocky ground, sparks are coming out. Falmuriyat, it means to, awra yuri means to ignite. They're igniting qadhan, sparks from beneath their hooves because of the intense pace that they are galloping at. فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ الصُّبْحَ. They are laying the attack. Aghara yughiru means to raid or to lay an attack. Subhan, in the early morning. فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقَعًا. Athara yuthiru, it means to raise, it means to stir up something. Athara, to stir up something. So what are they stirring up? Naqa'an, dust. They are stirring up clouds of dust as they are running, galloping, sprinting. Sparks are flying from their feet, and dust, billows of dust are rising into the sky all around them. Now with this intensity, at that early morning, فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا. They plunge. Wasata, it means to go into the middle of something. They plunge into the midst of the enemy army. Jam'an. Right into their ranks. Why is this picture being given to us? What is the objective of this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about the loyalty and the commitment of these animals to their masters. They have been trained to serve their master, not to look out for their own interest. They are not worried about the danger that lies in front of them. Rather, they're looking at, what does my master want me to do? The reins are in the master's hand, and the spur is in the hands of the master. The master is spurring them forward, they're moving forward. The master is turning them in any direction, they're turning in that direction. The master says move forward, they're moving forward. Even though the threat is there, they will plunge right into the middle of it simply because the master is saying so. That's what they are trained to do, and that's what they live for. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ. But very frequently the human being is not like that. Rather, he is kanud. We'll explain this word in just a minute. What does a horse get from its master? It gets food and drink. It gets groomed. But most of the time for these horses, like war horses, they're being trained. They have to travel long journeys. They bear exhaustion, scarcity of food and water. And sometimes the travels, the journeys go on for weeks, the expeditions go on for weeks or even months. And when the battle breaks out, these horses are at the forefront. But because that master is looking after them in a minimal way, the horses are ready to sacrifice their lives for the sake of their master. But the human being withholds, restrains himself, measures everything. How much am I giving? What have I given? In terms of time, in terms of energy, in terms of wealth. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ. The horse is very loyal and grateful to its master, but the human being is very ungrateful to his master, to his Lord. Kanud, this term is originally in the Arabic language, it is used for that earth which does not yield anything. So you may have tilled it, you may have watered it, fertilized it, planted seeds, you've done everything to look after it, but it's not yielding anything. So they say this is ardun kanud. This is an earth that does not, it's a ground, doesn't yield anything. So this is the original meaning of this word. In terms of this specific verse, many mufassirin have mentioned that it simply means ungrateful. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps pouring ni'mas towards him, gives and gives and gives. But how does this person respond? They don't respond in any meaningful way. Now this could mean several things. One is by hoarding and keeping everything to himself. The other is that kanud is one who counts the problems and forgets the bounties. And this happens. It happens with humans in general, and with some people it happens to a very great extent. Always counting the problems. Now I have this issue, now I have this problem, now I have this problem, now I have this problem. It seems like if you were to talk to them, it seems like all they have are problems. Even though at any given time, the ni'mas of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon every single one of us by far exceed the tests and the tribulations. So the human being has this habit of counting difficulties, ignoring and forgetting the bounties. And so much so that sometimes when one affliction, and afflictions are sure to come, difficulties are sure to come, one difficulty makes them forget all of the bounties. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ. Now, the opposite of this is someone who looks at the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and because of their gratitude to the bounties, the problems seem very far and few in between. These are just a few problems. Otherwise, alhamdulillah, I'm okay. Yeah, this is a difficulty, it's a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I'm okay. Alhamdulillah, Allah has many favors on me, many bounties on me. Allah says, وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Speak of the bounties of Allah. Doesn't say anywhere, speak of the problems, speak of the afflictions. Speak of the bounty. In fact, speaking of the bounties will actually empower a person to put the problems to one side. And it will empower them to deal with the problems. It will empower them to have the strength to conquer the problems, to conquer the challenges. And someone who's always talking about the problems, they're igniting the grief and the pain of those problems, which may be very real, but they're making it worse for themselves. They're disempowering themselves to the point where they're not able to take those challenges on. That's why across many themes in our deen, we will find that negativity is shunned. In any context, whether it's a negative attitude, it's negative speech, it's a negative perception of people or things or conditions, it's a way of talking about something or someone, our deen says no, you keep your tongues, your minds, your hearts clear of these things. And then Mufassirin have mentioned something very powerful. We often hear that Iman lies between shukr and sabr. Shukr is necessary, gratitude and patience. Gratitude on the bounties and patience on the difficulties. But ulama have mentioned that there is a difference between shukr and sabr. They're not equal. In fact, they say that sabr is the khadim of shukr. Sabr is the khadim. It is the servant of shukr, because the ultimate objective of sabr is to bring shukr inside for what a person does have. Now look at Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's words. When he was exerting himself in ibadah, in his tahajjud, in his qiyam, to the extent that his feet began to swell and crack. So people said, Allah has pardoned everything of yours. What was he doing? Exerting himself and doing sabr on the exertion. He was doing sabr. When people asked him why he's exerting himself so much, what did he say? أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا. He didn't say عَبْدًا صَبُورًا. Shouldn't I be a patient slave? أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. Should I not become a grateful person? I am doing this so that it leads me to the gratitude of Allah, that Allah has given me this bounty, He has pardoned my omissions and commissions. This is my way of showing my gratitude. So sabr is also there to instill a sense of gratitude. A person who has no sabr cannot do shukr. Smallest affliction comes, when sabr is not there, it overwhelms the person. They say, oh no, that's it, all is doomed, all is lost. When sabr is there, then a person's mind and heart moves from the problem to the good things in life, to the ease, to the comforts, to the joys, to all those opportunities where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been so kind and generous. So, this is the direction that the Qur'an is leading us towards. That don't be ungrateful, don't count the problems, don't count the thorns, count the roses. وَإِنَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ لَشَهِيدٌ. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ. Insan is very ungrateful. وَإِنَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ لَشَهِيدٌ. He is most certainly a witness over this. Who is most certainly a witness? The human being knows this inside. Inside they know that they're being ungrateful, and they know, everyone knows, that when you sit and complain about your problems, you only feel worse. What greater proof do we need that this is not good for us? He knows it inside. Or on the day of judgment, the human being will testify to his own ingratitude. وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. But when it comes to wealth, he is very intense for his love of wealth. He has a very profound, very strong love for wealth. Shadid. أَفَلَا يَعْلَمُ إِذَا بُعْثِرَ مَا فِي الْقُبُورِ. Doesn't he know that when whatever is in the graves will be turned inside out? Bu'thira, it means to roll something, to flip something over, to turn something inside out. So whatever is in the graves will be turned out, meaning the bodies will be taken out of the graves. And then what will happen? وَحُصِّلَ مَا فِي الصُّدُورِ. And whatever is in the chests will be extracted. Whatever is inside, the good, the bad, the good intentions, the bad intentions, the good attitudes, the bad attitudes, the good habits and ways that exist within us, and the bad habits and ways, all of it, حُصِّلَ, will be extracted. إِنَّ رَبَّهُمْ بِهِمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ لَخَبِيرٌ. Verily, on that day their Lord will have full information about them, will be fully informed. Yani, He is fully informed even now, but on that day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will gather all the information and show it to them. Look, this is what you had inside. These are your deeds. These are your words. These are your actions. Here you go. So, Kanud is someone who looks at things in a certain way. This teaches us that our perceptions need to be corrected. And correcting them simply means that we start perceiving things the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to look at things. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not here to manipulate us so that we think that something good is actually bad and something bad is actually good. No. But every intelligent human being knows that the way we look at a circumstance is often the first step in how we will deal with it. If we are not looking at it properly, we will not deal with it properly. Somebody who looks at something in such a way that this is doom and this is destruction, then they don't have the strength that it takes to tackle it, to deal with it. Whereas somebody who says, okay, this is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah has given me many things with which I can tackle this, that person's approach is going to be very different. Now what happens when a person goes into a state of shock or a state of fright? they're not able to make a judgment on things. As opposed to someone who's prepared themselves and says, no, I've dealt with this before, I can manage this. What will it take? How does it happen? It's nice to talk about these, and how does it happen? It happens with practice. The next time an issue, a problem comes, we have to say, okay, look, our mind will run away with us in a certain direction. We have to stop it and say, no, hold on a minute. I want to take another approach to it. And in the beginning, it's very awkward because we're used to thinking and approaching things in a certain way. But we have to put the brakes on it and say, no, I'm going to take this approach that the Quran is mentioning. Because I want my approaches to my problems to also be a means of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, first it's a tussle between us and ourselves. It's a tussle, but we can win that tussle. And then we recalibrate ourselves, reorganize ourselves, and force ourselves to use the better approach. Next time a difficulty comes, we do it again. And we do it again. And we keep doing it until it becomes our habit. And when it becomes our habit, then it becomes a part of our akhlaq, it becomes a part of who we are. And what I'm saying is very easy to understand. What happens with a new driver the first time they get behind the wheel? It's very intimidating. It's very scary. You're unsure of a lot of things. And the fear is actually greater than the task in front of the person. Now they have an experienced driver sitting right beside them who is very calm. But this person who is sitting behind the wheel for the first time has so many worries and concerns and what if I can't measure the distance? What if I don't make the turn right? What if I don't know how to park? What if I don't pull out properly? What if I step on the gas too hard? What if I step on the brake too hard? 100 things are going through their mind. But the experienced driver takes them through it, step by step. Now do this, now do this, now do this. It's okay, you made a mistake there. No worries. Let's try it again. Let's try this again. And with practice, as the practice grows and becomes more repetitive, then some of that fear and some of that hesitation, they start disappearing, and a time comes when the person is able to do it very smoothly. The same thing happens with us internally. One of our biggest challenges is we do become prepared somehow, sometimes by listening to a talk, or by studying Quran, by studying Hadith, we are able to bring ourselves to certain acts that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala outwardly. Meaning we're able to mold ourselves to those things. Salat, zakat, siyam, hajj, and other good deeds, staying away from certain bad deeds. We're able to bring, but there is a whole world, there's a whole universe inside us. And this is also a part of what will be extracted on the وَحُصِّلَ مَا فِي الصُّدُورِ. Whatever is here is going to be extracted. It's going to be judged. It's going to be weighed. How much good is in there, how much bad is in there. And that's why sometimes that experienced driver in life is also necessary. Someone who can take us through these obstacles, and who can remove the fear and the fright and the unnecessary hesitations and just keep us going and help us get to that point where we also become experienced drivers. Then maybe we can also show someone else how to drive. We'll do one more surah, very briefly. This is Surah Al-Qari'a, another Makki surah. Qari'a means to strike, to knock, to rattle something. Al-Qari'a. Allah says, Al-Qari'a, the striker. The striker. Mal Qari'a. What is this striker? What is this thing that is striking, that is pounding? To pound something. Qari'a. To pound something. What is this thing that's pounding? وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْقَارِعَةُ. And do you even know what is this striker, this pounder? So Qari'a is one of the names of Qiyamah. Why? Because the blast and the scream of Qiyamah will pound and tear the eardrums of all that are there. It's that blast, whether it's the blowing of Israfil into the horn, or the din and the noise of the destruction that is surrounding mankind, that blast will be so strong that it will be deafening, and it will take away people's ability to hear. يَوْمَ يَكُونُ النَّاسُ كَالْفَرَاشِ الْمَبْثُوثِ. The panic and the commotion amongst people. People on that day will be like scattered moths. Scattered moths. If you see a group of moths, if you go under any light, any street light, you'll see moths. How their movements are in disarray, so disorganized. Helter-skelter, moving from here to there, all over the place. That will be the condition of people on the Day of Judgment because of the fear. Running into each other, bumping into each other, running away, back and forth, back and forth. It's the panic, the fear, the sheer sense of doom and destruction and helplessness. وَتَكُونُ الْجِبَالُ كَالْعِهْنِ الْمَنْفُوشِ. And the mountains will become like carded wool. And the word for wool is suf, but the difference between ihn and suf is ihn is that which has been dyed. It's been dyed. So of course the mountains are not white, they're different colors. وَمِنَ الْجِبَالِ جُدَدٌ بِيضٌ وَحُمْرٌ. There are some that are white, and there are some that are غَرَابِيبُ سُود, pure black, and there are some that are red. So when these mountains are ripped out of the ground because of the shaking, and then they fall back onto the earth, and then they will be pulverized over and over again, like we read in Surah Al-Fajr and other surahs, then the dust of these mountains will rise, and those mountains will be reduced to dust, floating through the sky. And the person who will look at it will seem like, oh, it looks like wool of different colors, red and black and brown and gray. تَكُونُ الْجِبَالُ كَالْعِهْنِ الْمَنْفُوشِ. It's been separated. It's falling apart. So what about that day? فَأَمَّا مَنْ ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ. The one whose scales are heavy, are weighty. فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ رَاضِيَةٍ. They will be in a life that is pleasing. From that point onwards, there will be nothing but pleasure and enjoyment for them. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ. And for the one whose scales are light, meaning their deeds are insufficient, their good deeds are insufficient, so the scales will be light. And deeds on the Day of Judgment will be weighed, not counted. So it could be that a deed was very short, did not take much exertion, but the sincerity that was in it made it very heavy. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to weigh deeds. So the one whose scales are heavy, now they may have gone through some difficulties, some inconveniences to perform those deeds, but from that point onwards there will be nothing but enjoyment for them. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ. The one whose scales are weightless, there's not enough substance to weigh them down. فَأُمُّهُ هَاوِيَةٌ. Here means destination. Then that person's destination is Hawiyah, the pit. And Hawiyah is one of the names of Jahannam. فَأُمُّهُ هَاوِيَةٌ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا هِيَ. And do you know what this Hawiyah is? نَارٌ حَامِيَةٌ. It is a fire that has been intensely heated. So these were 3 surahs in sequence. The themes are very similar, and the messages are similar, but different in their own way. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to reflect on these beautiful verses and prepare for what these verses are describing, and make us from those people whose scales of good deeds become weighty and heavy. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to do those deeds that weighten the scales, and keep us away from those deeds that lighten the scales. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين.